You are tuned in to On Air with Chris Shanafelt.
Welcome back On Air with Chris Shanafelt, and we have a great show lined up for you guys this evening. Hope you guys are doing all right. I know here in Chicago we have some blistering weather as tomorrow will be a record low in the city of Chicago. We got tomorrow and Thursday. It's looking like it's going to be a high of negative 27, I believe. Wind chills, and that's real. That's the actual degrees. Wind chills for tomorrow and Thursday in the negative 50s. So hope you guys are staying warm. Yeah, it's that time of the year, but nobody ever expects that cold of weather. You got schools shutting down. You got jobs telling their employees to just stay home, stay warm, stay safe. So I'm going to tell you guys to do the same thing and hope you guys are having a great night while doing so. And again, thanks for tuning in. I am your host, Chris Shanafelt. If you've missed this episode in its entirety and would like to check it out, do that at my website, christianshanafelt.com or blogtalkradio.com/christianshanafelt, where you guys are listening to us live. Again, we have a great show lined up for you guys today. It's officially Super Bowl week. We have the Los Angeles Rams taking on the New England Patriots in Atlanta on Sunday for Super Bowl 53. Tonight we'll be talking about that game and more, as we'll be joined by Miami Dolphins defensive end Jonathan Woodard. We'll talk about his young NFL career thus far and, of course, get his thoughts on the big game, which, of course, features a team that he sees twice a year, being in the AFC East. Let's go ahead. We'll welcome in our first guest of the night. Again, he's Jonathan Woodard, the defensive end for the Miami Dolphins, out of the University of Central Arkansas, though. Feels just like yesterday we did that prospect interview, Jonathan. Really do appreciate you carving some time tonight, though, man. How's it going?
It's going pretty good, man. And it's funny, my sister actually lives in Chicago now, so I was just talking to her a couple of days ago when I saw the forecast that said I thought it was only going to be negative 12. So when I kind of had me a little nervous for hearing you say negative 27 degrees.
Yeah, and I think in the opening I said that's going to be the high. I believe that's going to be the low, but at some point it is going to reach, or it's supposed to reach, negative 27, and wind chills, real feel of negative 50, something I've never experienced, something many people have never experienced. It's going to be the coldest day, record-breaking day here in Chicago. I'm not sure if you're in Miami, Florida right now, Jonathan, but it's got to make you pretty happy to play for an organization in a warmer state like Florida, as you do for the Miami Dolphins.
No doubt. Definitely take it for granted sometimes, even going back to Atlanta and the Nashville where I'm at right now. I think I'm sure Miami is probably like 50s and 60s, but just coming back and getting to the 30s makes me kind of just realize how fortunate I am to be in a place in Miami where in December it's like 70, 60 degrees and beautiful. So I definitely enjoy being able to play for an organization that puts me in that position. Yeah,
here in Chicago we'll have a 90-degree turnaround as Sunday. It's supposed to be about 43 degrees. So we'll have Chicagoans out here washing their cars without their shirts, and it's going to be like a hot summer day come Sunday. But gotta get through the week. Jonathan, I remember when you were preparing for the NFL draft. Like I said, we had you on the NFL Draft Player Spotlight show, and again, I remember this prospect with great size. He was one of the top defensive ends in the FCS. You were the Central Arkansas's all-time leader in tackles for loss and sacks. And I remember in that interview, you resembled your game to Calais Campbell, one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL. Were you able to spend any time around Campbell, or did he arrive in Jacksonville the same year you left?
No. He got there the year that I left, but I still got the chance to work close to him and learn from him through like the off-season program and through fall camp, just to see how he went about things and just to see like how like a true pro goes about things. And it was a blessing to be be able to be around a guy like that, just because there's not a lot of guys like that you can just have the opportunity to be around them. So I'm just grateful that I had the opportunity. And even now, I've been fortunate to be around a guy like Cam Wake, who's another one of those guys who's been playing for a long time, like does things the right way, carries himself the right way, and it's about his business. And it's just the perfect pro. And following guys like that, I feel like that's the best way to really stay in this league for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the better pass rushers in the current NFL day. You were drafted, again, in the 7th round by the Jacksonville Jaguars in the 2016 NFL Draft. Jonathan, what was that moment like for you as the draft was winding down? Did you think that you would be selected? And when you found out that you would be heading to Jacksonville, was that a surprise? Were they a team that showed interest in you throughout the draft process at all?
They showed interest late, and it was kind of crazy how it turned out. My parents actually had moved to Jacksonville like a couple months before the draft, or like earlier that year. So I was in Jacksonville watching with them at their house. And like as we got into the later rounds, it was in the 7th round. And every time someone called my phone for like a free agent opportunity, my mom would run up with the camera to try and record, and I can remember getting really frustrated because every time she thought I was getting drafted and I had to calm her down, like, no, that's not it. And then finally when they called, the moment was just surreal, just because of how long it had been in the making. And honestly, in that day, I didn't think it was going to be Jacksonville that drafted me, but I'm just blessed that they gave me the opportunity.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, a month after you were drafted, you tore your Achilles during a team workout. How were you able to overcome that injury? I got to think that was something that took some time to get over, especially seeing as you're just a month removed from the NFL draft. I'm sure there's a lot of excitement throughout those 4 weeks as you were a member of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then you go down with this injury. Not so much just physically how were you able to recover, but mentally, I got to think that was a big hit to you, as it would be to anybody.
Yeah, it was definitely a rough adjustment to make, just after all the work I put in, and I finally reached the point of in my head saying, like, I've made it, I'm here, and then it being taken away just like that, basically like a snap of a finger, and then that being the only real like true injury I've ever had that's like sidelined me. So it really took support from family members, prayer, and like leaning on my teammates and those who are around me to really kind of get through that, because there's a lot of times where I'm sure a lot of people who have been through serious injuries like that know where you're not really seeing the results you want to see, and your improvement with rehab and stuff like that, it starts to kind of stagnate a little bit. Sometimes like that, it gets really hard, but I'm glad that the strength coach or the strength staff and the training staff really stuck with me throughout the whole process and pushed me through those like times where I was plateauing. And the teammates I had in Jacksonville, they really encouraged me throughout the whole process, because it's kind of hard to just watch for that long. But a lot of people just encouraged me to like take advantage of the opportunity to learn and to use that time for motivation, and to just remember that time for whenever I came back and I was healthy.
Absolutely, and as we know, Jonathan, the NFL, it's a business, and sometimes news really blindsides some folks, and unfortunately, when you were healthy the next year, you were ultimately released by the Jacksonville Jaguars. Why do you think they ended up releasing you? Again, yeah, you went through the Achilles injury, but this was still just a little over a year after they drafted you. And is that something that motivates you to this day? Is that something that'll always motivate you as long as you put on a helmet and shoulder pads?
Yeah, it'll definitely be something that always motivates me. And in my opinion, during that time, I think that consistency was an issue. I would be lying if I say that I had put like my best foot forward during my whole during that whole camp or OTAs and camp experience in Jacksonville. Those were my first true football snaps in around a year and a half, and I think it took me a while to like just get back to being comfortable and getting back into the swing of things. And I think that just like a lack of consistency just throughout camp is really what ended up hurting me, because I started off okay, and then I had some rough games in between, or for the second and third game, and then my last game I played really well. But obviously that wasn't enough. But that's just part of taking ownership. You have to be responsible for just like the product that you put on the field, and just got to remember that.
Again,
also, no matter what, like, what did you say?
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying that just being wary of the film you put out at all times, because that's your resume. And Jacksonville didn't feel like I was good enough to be on their team, but teams like Atlanta and Miami felt differently. So.
Again, he's Jonathan Woodard, Miami Dolphins defensive end, joining us here on air with Chris Shanafelt. And, yeah, you ended up having a short stint with the Atlanta Falcons. You were on their practice squad before landing where you're at now in Miami. And, of course, it was the Dolphins game, I believe it was week 3, maybe week 4, against the New England Patriots, where you would go on to make your NFL regular season debut. Talk about a welcome to the NFL moment, going up against Tom Brady and the Patriots, and again, a team that's preparing for the Super Bowl this weekend. And then a couple weeks later, you would record your first career sack against the Chicago Bears. How satisfying and reassuring was it for you to get your first NFL action, and then shortly after that, your first career sack since being drafted into the league in 2016?
It was a good feeling. It was definitely a good feeling. Definitely a surreal moment, like you said, for the first game to be against Tom Brady. It's one of those things like I feel like I couldn't even it's like a story you can't even make up for everything to happen like that. But one of the biggest things, like I think I said earlier, is just being consistent. And I think one of my things is I wanted to just not get carried away with success that I had, because this game is the margin of error in this game is so small, and I just wanted to be able to move forward and to keep improving, and to not let success that I have kind of make me lose sight of like what I'm shooting for and what I'm striving for. Right.
And, you know, not only was that game against the New England Patriots your first game, NFL regular season game, but, you know, it's not just a game that you were suited up for either. I mean, you've seen a lot of snaps in that game, and you had a pretty nice impact on the defensive line. You got to Brady a couple times, forced a lot of pressure, made some tackles, and, you know, what was that moment? I mean, how big of a jump now, since you had some, you know, from that first game of yours against the Patriots? I guess I just want to ask, how big of a jump was it from playing FCS college football to the NFL? How did the University of Central Arkansas kind of prepare you for the league? And was it as big of a jump as many people talk about?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a big jump.
Mm-hmm.
The speed of the game, like the speed of the game, I guess at FCS level, the size of, I guess maybe not skilled players, but definitely the offensive linemen you go against, I feel like there's a pretty big difference. And then also just the emphasis of technique at the professional level is just something that I guess, just like something I've heard about, but it's a lot different when you experience it, because I feel like as you go from level to level, high school to college to professional, the need to like hone in on your technique becomes like more and more important. And I feel like coming out of high school as a really raw player, and then coming out of college, like I was a more refined player, but I relied on like a few key moves, and I feel like only certain players can really kind of rely on like a few key, maybe like a few key moves, and then just not have like counters and stuff to go off of that. Because I think that's what I struggled with early on, was I had like a move or two that was like my go-to, but if I wasn't using those moves, like what was I going to do next? I think that was something I learned, that I've started to like learn and like develop as I've been in the league, is having those, just having more variety as a pass rusher. And I think also it's been good to see players I've played with, like Trey Smith for the Kansas City Chiefs and George Odom for the Indianapolis Colts, have so much success this year as well. It just goes to show there's a lot of talent at the FBS level and a lot of talent just in the Southland Conference itself. So there's definitely lots of NFL caliber players in the FCS level, but I feel like as a game as a whole, it's pretty different, but it's not something that is like, it's not out of the realm of possibility for FCS players to come in and succeed and be able to flourish in the NFL.
A few more questions for Miami Dolphins defensive end Jonathan Woodard here on air with Chris Shanafelt. Jonathan, obviously you guys had a 3-0 start to the season. Miami was kind of one of the what they call surprise teams to start the year. Unfortunately, the Dolphins would finish 7-9. Head coach Adam Gase was probably the biggest surprise when it came to NFL firings. Did it come as much of a surprise to you and your teammates as it did to the outside world?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I can say it came as a surprise, but I guess it's, at the end of the day, it's kind of a results-driven league, and we didn't end on a good note the last couple of games, so that's kind of like a tough pill we have to swallow. And I think if we had ended the year on a better note, things might have been different. But there's only so much you can. I mean, at this point, it's like it is what it is, and we just have to handle that the way it is going forward.
And, of course, all signs point to the Miami Dolphins hiring Patriots defense coordinator Brian Flores. I don't want to get you into any trouble, though, Jonathan, so we will not speak on the possibilities of that happening. But speaking of the Patriots, before we let you go, one of your division rivals in the AFC East, they have a pretty big game this Sunday as they'll take on the Los Angeles Rams in Super Bowl 53. I just want to get your thoughts and opinions on a couple things in this game. And obviously, one of the big talking points about the Rams is their offense, and let's not forget about the talent they have on the defense, specifically on that defensive line. Jonathan, I'd love to get your take on Ndamukong Suh, Aaron Donald, and of course one of your former teammates in Jacksonville, and that is Dante Fowler. Can't believe that I just had a brain fart. But yeah, Dante Fowler, he came up really big a couple of weeks ago against Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints, so he's having a nice impact on that defense. And we all know about the monsters in the inside with Ndamukong Suh and Aaron Donald. I mean, what are your thoughts on those high caliber defensive linemen for the Los Angeles Rams and the possibilities of those guys having an impact on this game on Sunday?
I think that's really the game is going to be decided up front, and whether or not, or just how good of a game like Aaron Donald, and Ndamukong Suh, Michael Brockers, and Dante Fowler, how good they can play together, and just how impactful they can be getting pressure on Brady, forcing Aaron throws, getting pressured, and just not making mistakes and giving Brady another chance. Because I think one of the things that killed me was seeing D Ford to get that neutral zone infraction. Just Brady having that opportunity. Anytime you give him something like that, I think he's going to take advantage of it. So I think it's just about. I think it's going to start up front in that game on both sides of the ball, because Patriots got some really good pass rushers too. I think that whoever can whoever's D-line can be the most dominant is going to win that game.
Are you like the rest of the world? Are you rooting against the New England Patriots as well, Johnson? I mean, again, a division rival. I mean, is that something you want to hear about entering next year? Is how the Patriots were able to win yet another Super Bowl? Or for you, is it, hey, my team's not there, my team's not in the playoffs, I need to focus on me, I need to focus on my team, so we can get to that point eventually, and you could kind of care less who pulls out the victory Sunday?
No, I'm definitely pulling for the Rams. I think it would be. I mean, of course, I'd love for the Dolphins to be in the Super Bowl, but we're not in it. So, based on the two teams that are in it, I think it would be great to LA to get a Super Bowl. And one of my best friends, Cameron, I think he's listening. He works for the Rams, so I think it would be fun to see him be on the Super Bowl winning team too.
Absolutely. Let's get a final prediction from you, Jonathan. What's going to be the end result come Sunday night?
I'm going to go ahead and say 24-21 Rams. Okay.
I'll take it, and I would not be upset with that outcome in the very least. Again, both teams very, very fun to watch, both very talented teams, obviously, to get to this point. But I'm with you. I'm certainly rooting for the Rams, but I've bet against Brady and the Patriots too many times, Jonathan. I think I gotta, if I'm going to the casino, if I'm going to try and make some money, I think I gotta go with the New England Patriots. I'm thinking more of a high scoring game, maybe a 34-30. Final score. Nonetheless, really just hoping for a great game, a very entertaining game, and I think we'll get just that. Jonathan, really appreciate you jumping on the show this evening. It was great catching up with you. Congrats on getting some NFL regular season action this past season, getting your first career NFL sack, despite it being against the Chicago Bears. I remember watching that live, but as my Bears fan was a little upset, but myself, I was very happy that it was you getting to the quarterback. So congrats on all the success. It was great seeing you out on the football field this season, and here's to even more success next season, man.
I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on.